I don't want to live life on defense anymore. I want to live life on offense. And I want to be able to exercise in the morning, listen to podcasts, read books, do what I need to do before the day starts. So I think that's really important. And it's funny because every time I tell people that I wake up at 5 a.m., they think it's like the craziest thing in the world. But I'm like, everybody should do it. I'm a huge proponent of that. I think it's changed my life.
Brace yourself for a wild ride into the unexpected. This ain't your typical success show. I'm here talking to real folks who've been through it all, skipping the fancy business talk for authentic stories. We're diving into childhood dreams, teenage escapades, and everything in between. No scripts, just the stories that truly mold success. Each episode takes you on a journey through those breakthrough moments that paved their way. No fluff, just genuine stories. So whether you're chasing dreams or just love a good story, buckle up for wisdom, laughs, and the unexpected. This is the Breakthrough Podcast, where success is a journey, not just some fancy destination. Don't miss out. Hit the subscribe button now and join our Breakthrough crew. I got some incredible stories to share, and you won't want to miss a single one. All right, so today's episode is a special one. I've got someone on who, funny enough, literally wrote this on her Q1 goals list, be on a podcast. And here we are. She's got a background in PR. She's a real estate agent, investor, creative, system builder, momentum maker. I mean, she wears a lot of hats. She's partnered up with her powerhouse of a mom, Ann Curry, and together they're building something special out in Tacoma, from flips to daddies to mentorship events that are honestly changing the game for investors. But what I really love is how Lauren thinks. Her clarity, her mindset, and the way she leans into growth is just next level. So if you've been feeling stuck, unmotivated, or just waiting for that nudge, this convo might just be your sign. Let's get into it with Lauren Curry. Lauren.
Steven, thank you for having me on. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's good. I thought that was an interesting, when we invited you, that was on your 2025 list, was to be on a podcast.
Yeah, it's crazy because I'm sure we'll talk about this in our conversation today, but I've turned into a very goals-oriented person and I wasn't always like that. And so now it's just kind of how I operate my life. But I've been trying a new thing this year where I write out my yearly goals, but then I sectioned it out by a quarter. And so one of my goals for this first quarter of the year was to be on a podcast. And I kind of was like, I'm just gonna have to pitch myself because I have a background in public relations. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna have to try to get myself on there. And then there was one day I checked my email and your assistant had reached out to me and I was like, and it was just coming up towards the end of Q1. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's cool how when you write things out, it kind of comes to fruition. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I texted you and I was like, hey, you helped me meet my Q1 goal. So thank you. I love it.
Yeah, that was great. And that was cool. When I read that, I was like, okay, it's good. It's kind of like you're manifesting your goals that you have coming up, and then they start to kind of come to life.
Yeah, and we just did an event on this. You were able to come to Tacoma, Washington and do an event on momentum. And I think that plays a huge part in goals, right? Because it's always
Yes.
hardest to start. You write these things down and you're like, I literally have no idea how I'm going to accomplish these huge things. But once you just get started, you kind of see things coming to fruition and it's just really
Yes.
cool. And a lot of that is because of the momentum and just doing what you need to do every single day, even when it feels monotonous and when you don't want to do it and you're having a bad day and all of that. So it's cool to see the momentum play out.
Yes. And the momentum also, and I think I brought this up to your mom, it also feels like there's a lot of uncertainty to it at the same time. It's a very interesting scenario. You will notice momentum when you look back like a year later and you look at all the things you accomplished. But then during that period of time, when you're going through those issues, whatever was going on, you feel like you're at a standstill. And you just brought up something, we're setting up a community for new investors, to help them buy their first investment property out of state. And so now we're going through all the back end stuff like how to have a portal with a place where a new investor can go to pull documents or learn something or, whatever it means and building that community, all that stuff in the back end takes time to build out. Unless you want to pay big bucks for somebody to come in and do it for you. But if you have a team that's never done it and you're trying to figure it out and you're working through it,
It's a learning
you
curve. You're like, "We're just doing this step by step. I don't know if it's right
uh
or not, but we're doing it." Yeah.
yeah, we're
I
doing it.
totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's kind of cool because you know what, you look back and I remember when I first hired my first VA and we were starting to shoot content and I hired a social media manager. He worked with us for probably about a year. And then he fell off for a little bit. He went to another company and then he came back on. And then when he came back on, I think it was probably maybe a year after that, we brought him back in and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you guys have all these systems in place. You've integrated all these tools and like you got this whole he's like, dude, like you guys have come a long way." But that during that period of time, it didn't feel like that. It
Yeah.
felt like we're just like, trying to work through it, second guessing and, always trying to improve. But I think that's how you have to do it sometimes,
You
unless you want
do,
to
and
spend a ton of money.
yeah, you do, and I think that's why it's so easy to give up is because you feel like you're doing all these things, like, you get up in the morning, you're working on, like, your systems or, whatever your goals are, and you're not seeing it, and you
True.
just wonder after a certain period of time, you're like, "Okay, is this even worth it? Is this even working? I don't know if it's working." But you don't know if it's gonna work until you see it through, right? But I think that's why it's easy to give up, and most people give up on what they wanna do or their goals and dreams, whether it be, like, investing in a ton of doors or investments or losing weight, what have you, but the momentum, like you said, it's in the everyday, and it's not until you look back that you're like, "Oh my gosh, I've come so far." But when you're doing it, it just doesn't it doesn't feel like it, but I would say, like, the best feeling in the world is when you do see it, and when you're like, "Okay, this is working," because I didn't see it up until this point.
Absolutely. That's why when your mom brought up the topic, that was kind of like my moment of you asking, saying that you wanted to get on a podcast this year and then it happens. Your mom comes up with the momentum and I'm like, "Oh, I love this topic. This is just such a great topic." Because that topic is such a you could play that in a decades.
Mhm, yeah, it pertains to everything that you do, even if it's just your family life or personal life or business. Everybody, I think, wants the momentum, but maybe doesn't necessarily know how to get there. Or what do you do when you reach your goals? You hear a lot of people talk about goal set and all these things, but you've probably experienced this in your life because you've done all these amazing things, especially in the past 5 to 10 years. It's like, okay, well, when you meet your goals, that now what? Like, how do you get to that next level and kind of the next threshold? Because then it's almost like you're not satisfied with where you are. You want to get
Always.
to, yeah, it's a never ending cycle. You're like, all right, I'm going to be happy when I meet this goal or do this. And then you do it and you're like, there's still that thing inside of you because then you've built up this part of yourself that wants to keep achieving and accomplishing and doing amazing things. And so it's just this never ending cycle.
It is. And you brought up a good point. It's really cool, when you're in the thick of it, I would say, and you feel like nothing's really panning out and then it starts to, and then you look back. And I think sometimes what I've noticed when I know that we're on the right track is people around me that maybe are getting into investing or working on their business and then we're helping them out on and it could be anything. I was helping a client who I've said this before, he's very smart, he's got a PhD. He works in marketing for a big tech company and he didn't know about Upwork to hire video editors or anybody that could do work outside of the US. And that was like a game changer to him. He's like, "I can't believe this. I love Upwork." And he talks, it's been well over a year now, and he hires all these people through Upwork. And then it's small little things that maybe we've taken for granted that we've learned over time that are super valuable to other people. And when you pass that information along to them, it pushes them in the right direction. But sometimes I don't step back enough and take it in.
Yeah.
Enjoy some of the, instead of always feeling like, yes, you have to constantly be hitting goals, improving and doing all these things where, you have to sometimes step back and enjoy it a little bit,
Yeah,
you know?
and too, you brought up a great point. It's like nothing that we experience is for nothing because everything that we go through, we can use that to help other people, you know? Like if you're working with that guy and you're able to help him because of what you experience, like all of that. And I think that almost brings such a comfort that like everything that we're doing, whether it be in real estate, we come up with these problems in real estate every day with properties or flips, or, we're helping our clients buy or sell a house. But everything that we're experiencing, we're able to use that and we're able to help somebody in their journey. And it's just such a good feeling because then, like none of this suffering or pain or frustration is going to be wasted. It's all going to be used to some degree. And it may not be tomorrow, it may not be next year. It could be in 5 years, 10 years, way down the line, but nothing is wasted, and I love that too, especially in our
Yes,
industry of real estate.
absolutely. Another word that's been brought up last week, a gentleman that I had on the podcast, was suffering, and we talked in depth about that word, and that is that's a big word.
It is. Yeah,
I go through that all the time. I feel like I
yeah.
suffer for others. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I suffer for others. Like I go through this like distress and whatever I'm going through, and then whatever that is that I break through it, I pass it to somebody else so that they don't go through it. Whatever that is.
That's that's what
It's
you
so
have to
crazy.
do. Honestly, you're like, "I hate it," but, like, I also love it, right? Because
Yes,
then
true.
somebody doesn't have to experience what you've experienced.
It's
But
so
again, it
true.
is I think that's, when you're in those seasons or moments of suffering, it's important to remind yourself of that, and sometimes it's hard
Oh,
when
yes.
you are going through these things and you're like, "I literally just want this to be over. What is this? Like, why is this happening?" But taking those moments to remind yourself, like, this is gonna be able to help somebody else. And then I think
True.
that gives you a different sense of not necessarily freedom per se, but you're like, "Okay, I can get through this because it's not just about me anymore. It's about somebody else."
Absolutely. I try not to check email, text, or talk to anybody prior to the podcast because the morning time is me time. Like I want to work out. I want to, do some audiobooks. I use Blinkist a lot now. That gives me like 15-minute clips of a book, that I can learn from.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And then they do these other ones that are short, like 5 minutes. And it's an app on my phone. I'll go through that. And the reason why I don't want to check emails, and I'm sometimes do this, but I like to have a clear head when I go into the podcast. And my mornings can start off with a million fires. And even the days when there isn't any, I'm anticipating them. It's like it's
You're
almost
mentally preparing.
it is, and it's almost somewhat of a little bit of an anxiety curse in a way. I wake up and I'm like, oh, what's going on? And I have
What's
to,
in it? Yeah.
what's in it for today and some certain things. We have a lot of, you know,
Yeah.
you're building. You have clients. You got all these things going on. You're juggling a million different things at one time.
Yeah, and I think that's why similar to you, like I started waking up at 5 a.m. I mean, it's been a few years now because I got to a point in my life where this was kind of before I was in real estate and I wasn't necessarily as driven as I am now, where I would wake up at 7, I would start work at 7:30, and it was like immediately I was on the defense because when you wake up and then you start work, you're checking your emails instantly, you're putting out fires, you don't have any time, like you said, even for yourself. And so That's why I start waking up really early because it gives you a time just to do what you need to do and have this moment where you're not obligated to respond to people. You can have your phone on do not disturb. You can put the good stuff in because the rest of the day then you're in a way on offense because you've already done these things that you need to do for yourself before then you're putting out fires, dealing with rental problems or whatever. And so that's why I start waking up at 5 a.m. because I'm like, I don't want to live life on defense anymore. I want to live life on offense and I want to be able to exercise in the morning, listen to podcasts, read books, do what I need to do before the day starts. So I think that's really important. And it's funny because every time I tell people that I wake up at 5 a.m., they think it's like the craziest thing in the world. But I'm like, everybody should do it. I'm a huge proponent of that. I think it's changed my life.
How long's it been?
I would say it's probably been about 3 or 4 years now that I've done that.
And how long has your mom been doing it?
Up, I mean, decades.
Really?
Yeah, she's a 4 a.m.er though. I'm not on the 4 a.m. game
Is
yet.
she 4
I'm
a.m.?
sticking to 5. I think she's at like 4:15 or 4:30. I think one day I'll work up to that, but 5 a.m. is like the perfect time for me right now.
What about your dad? Does he get up really early too?
No, he's like a 7 a.m. kind of
Yeah.
guy, but he's more of a night owl, so he kind of works, you know, till 10 or 11 and then he'll kind of sleep in. So my mom
Mm-hmm.
definitely her discipline in that area rubbed off on me, which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, it's a good one, but it's interesting. So I'm like going towards that. It seems like little by little, but I'm more like I get this like creative boost between 9 and 11 at night. And my wife, she's a 4:30 a.m. person. And so
Okay.
she gets up and it's her and it's but here's the other thing. That's her morning. It's her time. Like, do not disturb her. She's working out. She's doing her thing, like, do not get in her space type thing. It's funny. But so sometimes I'll creep in there, like, pretty early. And she's like, what are you
She's like,
doing? I'm
"Why
like,
are
I'm out of
you
here.
here?" Yeah.
I'm out of here. And it's like that schedule. But it's slowly changing because the more and more things are getting put on my plate, I need that extra time, and it's just a process and I see the value in it being that I'm not at 5 yet. I'm not at 5. I'm gonna get to somewhere in that range. But then I'm curious how if I'm gonna be tired through the day, would that push my when I the time I go to sleep at night? What time do you go to bed?
Yeah, I try to go to bed by like 9 or 9:30. Definitely in the beginning though, I mean, when your body's getting used to it, you're gonna feel tired. I would say it's usually like the early afternoon, like around 1. I don't know if you even feel like that right now, but around like 1 or 2 when, you're kind of in the middle of the day, you start to feel a little tired, but when I hit that point, I try to just, like, go on a walk or get outside
Get some
because it just refreshes me too, and I feel
Mhm.
like and you are huge on biking and being active, and I've seen you talk about this on your Instagram, but there's just something about exercise, even if it's just walking, where you get so many good ideas. Like, some of my
Absolutely.
best ideas and most creative ideas have come from when I'm just on a walk and I just pull
True.
out my notes app on my phone and I write it down.
Cool.
Because there's just something about moving and you're looking around at nature, which sounds so corny, but you're kind of getting out from behind the screen or wherever you work, if you're in a cubicle or whatever, and you're just able to get a new atmosphere, which I think helps so much.
Spot on. It's so true. And I sometimes hold back from talking about it a lot because I mean, I just want people, I put in the stories, especially running, like I'll run usually before a podcast because it will like calm down my brain, anxiety and all that, and help me focus and be present during the podcast. But it also solve some of the little things that are going on that maybe are little stressors in the back of my head that they're there and I'm working through them, and maybe they take a couple days, but then I go on a run or I go on a bike ride and I'll work through it and go, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. This is what I'll do. Or I get a creative idea and then I'm doing the same thing. I'll voice record things and I'll send things to my assistant through WhatsApp. And I don't have my glasses on, so I can't even read what I'm saying, but I'm like, "La, la, la, la." She gets it back and it's like, well, you said that. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I meant there.
Yeah, you're like, "I just need to send this to somebody."
Yeah, yeah. I just need it from my brain out. I'll voice record stuff and send it to me. It's hilarious. But
I
it's
love
true.
it.
It's true.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, before I started exercising, there's a period of my life where I was not where I wanted to be health-wise, and my mom is Ann Curry is very healthy, very disciplined. She is like the pinnacle of health goals, and I
I
always
love her
saw
for
that.
that too, by the way.
Yes, I know. She's amazing, and I always saw that in her, and I was like, "I don't have that." And I was not eating good, I was not exercising, and this was right before I got into real estate, and there's a point where I only had 1 pair of pants that I could fit into because I had gained so much weight, and I hit a point where I was like, "I'm done feeling this way." And I started slowly exercising, I was walking and then I added in weights and I lost all this weight, but really, the best part about exercise wasn't even how it changed my body, it was how it made me feel, and I think that I wouldn't necessarily say it's a misconception, but, like, it's a
Hmm.
huge thing that I don't think is necessarily capitalized on enough when talking about your health because it's not always about necessarily being, like, the healthiest person in the room, it's just, like, how can you do what makes you feel good, and exercise just feels good. If you practice, like, the muscle in your brain to even just get outside and go for a 30-minute walk, you're gonna feel a million times better. You're gonna be able like you said, you do this on your bike rides, like, you solve your own problems in your head. But when can you do that if you're just getting up, working on your computer, caring for your kids, or what other obligations you have? I think it's an amazing tool and it's free, you know? A lot of
Absolutely.
times it's free. You don't have to spend $50 for a workout class. You can do things that don't cost anything, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, my wife works out at home. She doesn't have a gym membership. She's got a treadmill in the garage and she goes walks when it's a little warmer out. But I call working out and cardio my selfish addiction.
I love that.
And it really is. It's like I'm very selfish about it because it makes me feel good. And you said something there. I really don't care the outcome of how I look, more so on how I feel. It's probably the most important part of it.
Yeah,
Like,
and I
it's
think
just the way it
yeah.
is.
I mean, when you're selfish with that time, even if it's an hour in the morning or in the afternoon or the evening, it makes you a better person to other people. It makes you a better
Mhm.
business person, In real estate, it makes you a better real estate agent or investor or partner because when you're taking that time for yourself to feel good, and this is like you hear this in every single book or podcast, so I hate that I'm even saying it out loud, but when you take care of yourself, then like you show up better for other people, but it's so true, it's being selfish with that time and then it makes you just a better person to work with and be around and it
Absolutely.
makes you want to do even more. So I think it's an amazing tool.
So your mom's been at this for a while. So you've definitely seen those are all
Yeah,
the traits. She's
she
crazy.
does, but she's almost like, to be honest, and she knows this, but to be honest, she's almost like so intense that when I was not doing any of those things, it made me not want to do it because I'm like, she is so next level and so disciplined and seemed like at the time had no like lenience towards just like living life that I was
Mhm.
like, I don't want to live like that either. Like, I don't want to have absolutely like no flexibility and all these things. And she knows, we've had this conversation and kind of like laughed about it. But because I was somebody that was very much like, I want to go out and I want to like eat whatever food I want to eat. I don't want to be constrained by like my workout schedule or like, my food. And so when I was kind of like, I know I need to eat healthy. She was so strict and rigid that I was like, but I don't know if I want to be like that, like
I
that
want to say,
like 0 to 1,000.
yeah.
It almost seemed like, okay, that's not me, like that seems a little unrealistic. But no, she's an amazing role model in so many ways. She's been such a huge help for me, obviously personally, but professionally, because we ended up working together and it has been amazing. And she has taught me so much about real estate and rentals and even down to being an amazing real estate agent. She's just an amazing person in every way. But it was definitely the health part that I was like, that seems a little scary. Seems a little
Let me ease
scary.
into this.
Yeah. Yeah. She'll take, like, a huge bag of lettuce, and she'll eat the whole thing. I'm like, I don't know if I wanna do all that."
That's great. So
But,
what are you guys
yeah,
doing
no, she
together work-wise? What are you
Yeah,
working on?
so yeah. So when I first started with her my previous job was I was in public relations. I worked for a public relations agency out of LA and New York, and so I lived in LA for a few years. I moved back to Tacoma, Washington during COVID. And I moved in with my parents because this is when we all thought COVID was gonna be, you know, 2 weeks
Mhm.
long. So I was like,
Right.
"Oh, I may as well if I'm
Yeah.
gonna work from home, I may as well come home for, to Tacoma for a
Mm.
few weeks," but then that obviously turned into a much longer period of time, and so when I was working from home and working for this PR agency, my mom was like, "Hey, you should really think about getting your real estate license while you're here, making some extra money." And I was like, I don't know if I want to do all that. It's always when you say, like, I'm not going to do something that you end up doing it. Because I had been around real estate, obviously, I mean, a majority of my life. And I saw, my brother and I during the summers, we would spend our summers at her flips. We weren't hanging at the lake or doing any of like the fun kid things. We were helping her carry out old toilets and cleaning and, lawn work and all this stuff. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to do all that into my adult life. But when I was at my PR agency and I moved home and I ended up getting my real estate license, I was thinking like, I really think I could help my mom kind of get her name on the radar because she has so much knowledge, as you know, in so many different areas of real estate. And I knew how to pitch people. I knew how to get media stories and podcast interviews for other people. And so I was like, I really think I can help my mom. So when I originally came on and I had approached her, like, I would love to help you with your marketing and PR stuff. I was doing a lot of that, but it has morphed into this really cool thing where I had felt like I was working for her in the very beginning with this stuff, but now it feels like we're very much partners and working together on these big goals. So it kind of started off like PR and marketing and podcast interviews, and that's how we got connected to you, which is amazing. And I feel like we've known you forever, but that's how we got connected to you. But it's turned into this thing where I told her, "I really feel like we could get your name not just in Washington and Tacoma, like nationwide. So how can we do that?" So right now, we're working on a few different things. We're working on expanding a mentorship program that she's doing. We do a lot of free investor events in Tacoma, but I told her like we should start doing these events across the country, not just in Tacoma, because I feel like the more you get into the real estate industry, it seems like a small world, like any industry. It's like this person knows this person who lives in this state. And so I told her, like, we should really start connecting with people who are not just in Washington. And so right now we're working on doing something in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is going to be really cool
Cool.
later this year. Yeah, working on building out courses and really just helping other people. But it's been a really cool I would say, like, partnership with her because she's like, "Let's do it." She's down for anything. She's like, "Just bring me your ideas and we can figure out how to make it happen." And so,
That's a perfect way to think of it.
yeah, like, that has been really fun because she's so in the weeds with her projects, and so I've kinda become more of, like, the ideas person. And so I bring her these ideas and she's like, "All right, do it. Just figure out how to make it happen." So it's been really fun and really exciting, and being able to work with your parent has is and help them kind of like get their platform. It's just very rewarding.
And when I first listened to your mom on Bigger Pockets podcast, I was like, yeah, this lady's really cool. And then it was Furnish Finder. And I'm like, oh, she's got a great story. I'm going to reach out to her. Let me see if she'll come on to mine. Probably won't, but I'm going to reach out. And like, she reached out in
Oh
like
my gosh.
2 hours, within a business meeting dinner, and I was like, she's coming on, and she has so much knowledge. Those are the people you want to learn from. You really do. There's a lot of people out there that don't have all the knowledge, don't have the experience, and they're the ones doing the courses. And they're the ones like, doing
Sadly,
it's
yes.
and I brought this up to your mom when we were at the last event because I can hear, she was talking through some of these things and I was just like, you're the person that people need to be around. And not just about being a really cool investor, getting up at 5 and how she eats and working out. Those are all things too that come along with being a business owner, an entrepreneur, an investor. Like those are other qualities you kind of want to latch on to. And she
Yeah.
has those, you know what I mean? Like, it's good, and I'm glad she's doing it, but that really leads back to there's all these different it's good she's in the thick of things, right, on these projects. That's like me. I'm going through all these projects out in Seattle. I got the projects here in San Jose as well, and 10 minutes before this podcast when I'm not supposed to be talking to anybody, I'm talking to my assistant and she's saying that we need to set up a community and we got to do this and it's got to be tied to this portal and I'm going, all right, who are we hiring? Who are we hiring?
Who's gonna help?
Who's helping? Because, how much more time do I have in the day? Already 12 hours a day. I don't feel like it's work either. That's the funny part, but
Yeah, we live in such an amazing period of time because we have access to some of the greatest minds to have ever lived, and we get free access to them in so many different ways, right? Like, there's
true.
podcasts, you can pay $15 for a book to hear about somebody's life and what they learned. You could go to conferences, but there's so many ways to learn from these big name people, and it's important to find the top 1% in whatever you want to do and just study those people because it can be very easy if you're just scrolling on, social media or the internet to find somebody who's maybe done like something but who claims to maybe do more than they've done. And so it's just important to like find the people in the top 1% and literally study every single thing that they do. And I just feel blessed that, a lot of the mentors that I have don't even know that I exist. They have no idea who I am, but
Right.
I
Oh, that's a
consider
that's
them
a
my
good point.
mentor. Yeah,
Good
but I
point.
consider them my mentor because I listen to everything they put out. I buy all of their books, like everything that they come out with, like I consume it because I'm like, that's who I want to be. That's who I want to know. And so what can I do to be more like you? And so it's just a really cool period of time that we live in, but it's important to find those people and stick to what they say to do instead of listening to a lot of other voices out there.
That's true. And I think people wanna get around the people that they not only like, but they know them, they trust them, and they like their whole direction. Not everything that they're going through is kind of like a key. You wanna jump on that train too and get into that energy, I would say, because I do that with a lot of people that I start to, see online or maybe I try to get connected to them. I did that to your mom, plain and simple. And it
Yeah.
wasn't just about her talking about she did bring up her mentor, that journey, that beginning part. But then it was like the other things she was bringing up. She brought up, fitness and I could just faith and all those things. I'm like, okay, she's very well rounded in
Yeah, and
things.
I heard somebody say that when you meet somebody or see somebody that you admire, it's because you see those traits in yourself. And so I think that the internet is a really cool place because I mean, that's how you found my mom, that's how we got connected, but you just get a sense about people, even if you're like, I don't necessarily want you to be my mentor, I just want you to be my friend. You can kind of
Yeah,
sense it even
yeah,
if it's over the internet, but we have
definitely.
access to, I mean, basically the entire world with a free tool of Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. And so I personally have been trying to make the most that I can of those tools in this period of life because and I'm sure a lot of your listeners and even you relate to this, but I feel like I'm in this period of growth in my life where I don't, I've limited my time with a lot of people because I know that this is my
Mm,
season to grow, and it's a very lonely season, to be honest, but you have to do that in order to get to the next level, and so I've replaced not necessarily replaced, but maybe the time that I was spending with certain people or doing certain things, I've replaced that with these mentors that don't know exist, so I'm not always out on a Friday night anymore. I'm watching YouTube or reading a book, but that's sometimes what you have to do. And so when you find these people, it's like, all right, I'm just going to like stick to you and I'm just going to listen to everything that you say and do everything that you say to do. But I do think that it's tying back to what you said about finding my mom. It's like you find these people on the internet that you're like, I want to be friends with you. I want to be connected to you. But now we have that access, which is an amazing thing.
absolutely. It's so true. And that lonely part that you just said is it's definitely true
It's a
in a
real
lot of
thing,
ways.
yeah. Yeah. I
You
went
know,
to a conference, I don't know if you know who Ed Milet is, but he's actually
yes.
one of my mentors. He's just my favorite, but I went to a conference where he spoke a few months ago, and he talked about how when you're on this lonely road, you feel alone and you feel like it's never ending, but eventually your lonely road that you're on is gonna lead to somebody else's lonely road, and your guys' lonely roads are gonna merge and come together. And I thought that was really cool, and it was something that I had never thought about before of everything that I'm doing that it feels hard to do certain things alone, and it feels hard to cut things out in order to replace it with something that might not even be here yet, that's coming in the future, right? But something that's a little bit better. That's gonna lead me to somebody else who's done the exact same thing and who's on the same path I'm on, whether that be friend or business partner or what have you. And our lonely roads are gonna meet, and then we're gonna be able to work together or be together in some way. And so that was almost like comforting to me because it's like, okay, when you're on the lonely road, you don't realize that there are other people on that same path. Do you know what I mean? Because you feel
Absolutely.
like it's only you. And you're not trying to broadcast it to the world, and so that almost makes it feel a little bit more lonely, but when you're doing all of the right things, it's like these people come into your path that can help you and that you can help them, which is just a really cool thing.
And that's what's, I think social media is really good at points, depending on who you follow. I know that there's times when I'm going through something that maybe I'm stuck in my shit for whatever that is. And then somebody that I know that I admire puts out a post that is like probably something they went through themselves and they've already worked through it now and they're putting it out there to the universe. And then I grab that information, it recalibrates my brain and I move on too.
Yeah,
Just like what you just said about Ed, that lonely road. It's so true. And you're going through that lonely road because you're in hyper growth mode and you have blinders up and you're just, you understand that some of these outside forces will distract you, will hold you back, and you want to go through these things a little faster and you want to absorb and get moving. And you knows that. But then when you connect to the people that have already kind of, they're at a somewhat of the same kind of point as you understand things and each other
yeah,
in a lot of ways.
yeah.
It's really cool.
It is really
This
cool.
is what podcasting, like podcasts, some, I guess we go right through this type of, you know, talking points. That is great.
It really does, and I love how that happens, but I strongly believe that, these people come into your life because you've done all the right things. Like, you did all the right things up until you launched the podcast that led you to meeting to these various people and getting connected to even more people because of those people, but
Yeah.
it's because you did what you had to do to get there, right? And I think when you hit a point of momentum and growth that we talked about earlier, you kind of realize like I have to be my own biggest protector because nobody's going to protect me like I can protect me. And that's really hard. But when you are growing so much and you're learning so much and you get this mindset and like this mind shift, you kind of know like if I go do that or hang out with these people, I know that it's going to kind of mess with that mind shift. And I can't do
Hmm.
that because you're in your zone. You're like, I can't get out of my zone. It can be lonely, but like you mentioned, it leads you to other people that have been through the same thing. And there's almost this like string attaching you that you can't even explain, but you're like, we've been through this together, so we can relate on this together. And it gives you this connection that you wouldn't have been able to get otherwise, which is just amazing.
Yeah, I think the beginning of the year, I think when I went out to the event your mom had, it was kind of interesting to go through all these different like full circle moments and just the whole connection to Seattle back in the 90s for me up to now. It's so interesting. I keep going through that process over and over, or just how I ended up meeting people at the Bigger Pockets conference that were from Seattle that got on the podcast. And then was your mom kind of sealed the deal on everything. After your mom, I was on a plane 3 weeks later.
Mhm.
And it's just, that's how life shows up. And I spoke to a lady that went to the Momentum event. She follows me on Instagram, and I just had another conversation with her. And it's just cool because she's trying to lead into getting, buying investment properties and working through this, and I had a 30-minute conversation with her, and, we finished and she was just like, okay, you put me on a different path here now. Like, thank
I
you so much.
love
It's just,
that. I love
you
that.
know, yeah. And she was so
Yeah.
cool. She was so cool. And that,
I love
like,
that.
yeah, it made my day. Like, she just, you know what I mean? Like, you give all that energy from something that you're going through and you just give it over to her. Like, here, I've
Yeah.
already worked through this. Now you go through yours and you pass it
Yeah.
along down the road to somebody else.
But, if you track it back, it's like that's all because you took a leap of faith and reached out to one person in Tacoma, Washington, that then led
Yes,
you
true.
to this group of 75 people that, that brought that lady to you, and then who knows who she's gonna introduce you to, it's just I just love when that happens, but it's all because you decide to take that leap of faith and be like, "I'm just gonna ask this random lady from Bigger Pockets if she'll be on my podcast, and she might not respond, but we'll see what she says." And here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about some of the projects you guys have going on.
Yeah.
What are you guys working on together? Like, what are you guys partners
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. So one really cool thing that we got to do together is I have one rental right now in Tacoma, and I had approached her, it was probably a year and a half ago now, because she had bought this fire damaged house in Tacoma from a wholesaler, and she's gonna have to tear it down and build something new. And I was at that point looking to buy my second property because I had pulled a home equity line of credit out of my first house. And so I had this chunk of money that I was like, okay, I want to, buy another property. I don't know where that's going to come from. I didn't necessarily want to buy it on the market if I didn't have to. And so she bought this fire damaged house and she was going to build a new single family home on it, and there's room for a DADU in the backyard. And so I had approached her and I was like, "Hey, how much are you planning on listing this house for when it's done?" And she told me, and I said, "Okay, if I can come up with enough money to buy that house from you for whatever you're going to list it for, could you just sell it to me and not put it on the market?" And she agreed. And so about 6 months ago, the single family home was completed. So I got to see how the new construction thing works, which was really cool. It was an amazing experience, and it's definitely different from anything that I have experienced before in real estate, which I'm sure you know, it's like a whole other ball game. But so that single family home that I now live in, that I'll eventually rent out in the next year or so, is mine. And then right now we're working on building a DADU in the backyard, and that's going to be done in the next few months. And then we'll rent that out. And so it's cool to be able to do that together. She's very big, as you know, on the DADU play, and kind of, from what I understand, convinced you or influenced you in some ways to do that
Oh yeah.
here in Seattle. But it's a really cool opportunity that we have in this area to be able to have two rental properties on one lot and eventually be able to just split them off and then sell one of them if you want, or keep both of them. But so that's what we're working on together right now, which has been really fun. It's been a huge learning curve,
What have you been learning?
but
Tell me some of the things that have popped up. You're like, oh,
oh my gosh. Well, I mean, in real estate in general, anybody who's listening that's in real estate knows you have to be quick with decisions, but
huh,
especially in new construction, like you have to just know, like you have to just decide. And I think that's one muscle that I really had to flex when the single family, main home was being built, is like how to just decide and kind of also manage the contractors, which they are amazing. We're working with Tacoma DEDU, but that's also been something of like making sure everything's on track. And Matt has been obviously very helpful with that whole
Matt's super cool.
process. Yeah. And so we're
Matt's
working
cool.
with him, and I know he was on the podcast too. And so it's just such a small world we live in, but he is amazing. But there's just so many moving parts, and just being able to like make a decision like fast has been a huge learning curve for me. But I just think that like everything I'm learning now, I really want to be able to help my circle and my friends with, because a lot of the friends that I have that are my age aren't yet homeowners, property owners. And so a lot of this is like, I don't even know what a DADU is. I don't know what any of this is. And so I'm kind of torn between this world of like all real estate, like real estate is life, and then this other world where like, oh, I don't even know if it's possible for me to do this. But it's cool to be able to like think about merging both of those worlds of doing this new construction project and DADU thing over here, and then figuring out how to like help guide my friends and people in my circle that like you don't have to make real estate your full-time thing. Like the beautiful part of it that I have realized is that you can make real estate be whatever you want it to be. And to be honest, my mom knows this and we've talked a lot about it, is like I don't want real estate to be like my main world. I just want it to be like a part of my world that I'm able to use in other areas of my life. And so thinking about how can I merge like everything I'm learning from over here to like helping my friends and peers and all of that over on this other side has been something that I've really been trying to focus on. And so being able to have these experiences because of my mom, which I feel super blessed and grateful for, I know it's going to help me like on this other side of my life. And so I'm just trying
100%.
to like soak it all in.
Yeah, and building there's a lot of curveballs. Like, did you guys have some pretty big scenarios happen in the very beginning? What
Yeah,
I remember something.
it wasn't anything like earth-shattering in the beginning. I mean, this fire damaged house before they tore it down was like it was bad. It was a hoarder house. And we were gonna try to keep one of the walls up for permitting stuff and eventually like accidentally have it fall and then just build a new
Build it up.
wall. But that didn't pass with the permitting, and so we kinda had to go through a whole new, like, permitting process. But Matt is an amazing person to work with because he's so connected with all of the people that work for the city of Tacoma, and so he was able to get the new permitting passed pretty quickly. So that wasn't anything crazy, but it just kinda goes back to, like, the new build stuff. And even if you're flipping, it's like things come up that you just have to be flexible for. And if you have a timeline of getting things done, 99% of the time, the timeline it's going to get pushed because unexpected things always come up. But that's
Always.
what makes for interesting stories.
Oh, yeah. I'm going through that right now on our third project in Seattle, and I'm partnered on that one with my designer slash now friend that helped me do one of my projects in San Jose. And so she's got the whole designer, mentality, like she's amazing at that. But she's learning now, like the process and like, hey, they open up the walls. Now we got to change this. And, now we got to replace the roof. And they're holding back. Like, yeah, you open up the walls, you find treasures. It's either good or bad. And
Oh my
it's simple as that. And
gosh.
it's like,
Every
okay.
time.
Yeah. And so I'm like, all right, well, we got to move it forward. And that's why then it leads right back to, what did I tell you in the very beginning is as long as we buy it right and the numbers make sense and we have a little bit of flexibility in there, then we should be fine, and we'll figure out other ways to add value to that property and then continue moving on. But the key is moving on and moving on fast
Yeah,
and not
yeah.
wasting time.
Not wasting time because time is money.
It's
Time is
say it all
money.
the
So you're
time.
like, we got to make this snappy. Let's
I don't
just
have time
figure
for
it
this
out and
long
move
story. Let's
on.
who's fixing
Yeah.
what?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The same goes with even being an agent. Even if you're just an agent, it's like every transaction, there's something new that you're like, I didn't even know this existed or this could even happen, but we're going to figure it out and we're going to move on. It's the same with these real estate projects. It's like every time I feel like there's something new, but then you're able to, like we've talked about a lot, you're able to use that and kind of keep in your arsenal to help other people or so that for next time what to do or what not to do.
Oh yeah, it turns. I mean, it at first it starts off as a problem you're trying to solve, but then it turns into an asset because you get to tell the story later on, which
Yes.
is so good. And
Yeah.
and I think people out in Tacoma or Seattle, I tell this to friends and clients of mine, that opportunity out there is gold in a lot of ways. So you could both, husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend working, and you find a house and you move into the house, but you got the backyard. Now you build out the dadu in the backyard and then you sell that off. Let's say you make a couple hundred grand, maybe 300,000, depending on location, what you do. Now you just recouped all your down payment on the house you just bought and you got money in the bank on top of that. You still probably have a nice sized backyard depending on where you bought. It's so crazy.
Yeah,
It's
I
such a
know.
great it's a great scenario. Or it's
I
an
know.
investment
And
property.
yeah, it's funny that it's like happening in Tacoma because in so many ways I feel like Tacoma is behind on just certain things. But then with this, I'm like, oh my gosh, Tacoma is actually ahead because, in Seattle, because we can do these things. And then eventually, if slash when it expands out to these other metropolitan areas, like we can kind of be the ones to help other people and like mentor other people on that and what we've experienced or like even the benefits of it. Like we work with a lot of investor clients or even just clients that are like, I don't necessarily want to own 20 doors or 20 investments. I just want to have like something that brings me extra money. And we're telling them, like, you got to look for these houses on like corner lots. We're able to mentor them right now and be like, you have such a unique opportunity that not a lot of other people have yet. And so a lot of it is just trying to get people on the train here before it becomes like a huge thing
Yeah,
everywhere
and it's
else.
going to be.
So it will be. It's a really cool, unique opportunity. And I'm like, I love that Tacoma is on top of it.
Yeah,
Because
it's
then we could be
great.
the first ones. And it's cool that you were able to take action on that. And, you're like, all right, I live in California, but I'm just going to fly over every few months and try to do this and be one of the first ones to do it in a lot of ways. So I think that's awesome that you took action on it.
Yes, I think that was years of investing out of state and learning processes and how to put a team together because I learned everything the hard way because I really didn't have any support when I first started out in Detroit and Kansas City. I thought because I was an agent that, I could just figure everything out. And, you know, that wasn't the case. I could figure out some things, but a lot of it just came over actions and consequences of losing
Yeah.
money and going through things. And so it's funny when it got to the point that it got to Seattle, and then I started having all the different people on the podcast. That's when it clicked. And I said, I have the team. I have the right team. Easy to get there, 2 hours on the plane. And then you get on the ground, you go to the meetups and you start being around then you get comfortable. You meet the contractors, you see how the contractors are intermingled into these different, like Springboard or Thatch's group. So I knew, okay, these contractors are in that group or my agent's in that group. You're on top of your game when you're in these type of groups. For one, if you're a really bad contractor and you're in a group like Thatch's, you'd be out so fast if you were screwing up. That's just the reality of it because they don't want people doing, screwing over clients and things like that. So it all made sense, but it's just funny that it took, a very low decade to get to that point.
But I feel like you went from 0 to 100, you just decided, and then, like, a month later, you already had a property under contract. You're like, "All right, I'm not wasting any time," which I
And
think
I'm
is amazing.
and boy, was it, and it's been so crazy because now we have several dados getting built and I'm getting like triple bills of everything. Here's a good example. We
Oh, that's fun.
one, two, three, one, two, three, one,
Yeah.
two, three, one, two. And we're gonna we're ordering 2 sets of refrigerators, stoves, washer and dryers. For like all these things.
Are
But the
you
new
doing, like, similar, designs, I guess, for all of them? Or are you keeping them pretty basic?
so they're different designs. And now that I have my friend who's the designer in the mix, all bets are off. Now everything's designed. She chose all the paint colors for me. And it got to that point where I would just, she'd fly out there. She just got back. So she went to look at our project and I said, "Hey, can you go stop by the project that we're going to put on the market?" She did a quick walkthrough. She gave me some, feedback. She helped me with all the hardware through the house, the light fixtures, things, what I mean, paint tones, which has taken a lot off my plate. So I'm used to more streamlined, like go in there, make a thing good. Let's do these floors, this color, blackout hardware, and let's move on. But she's like the complete opposite. So I'm letting her roll with that. I don't think that's she loves doing it. So I'm like,
You're like, "Please take it
yeah,
away."
yeah. And you know what? She's really great at it and she loves it. And she's putting a little bit more flair, I would say, on a project than I would, or if I would spend a lot of time to do it. And I don't know if that's the best use of my time.
Yeah.
That's it.
I was gonna say that I've just noticed that you have such a cool mix of gifts, and creativity is one of them, because the Cambrian project you're working on right now, right? It was the
Yes.
one that you sold before, that the flip in California, and it was absolutely beautiful. I was like, "Oh my gosh, Steven, like, what can't you do?" I know you have a whole team behind you, but you just have these unique set of gifts where it's like creativity and strategic and smart, and also like a great interviewer and great conversationalist. So you're
I
able to
just
like
try.
do all of these things, but no, every project that I've seen that you've done is beautiful. So I
Thank
wouldn't
you.
expect anything less for your DADUs in Seattle.
Yeah, I know, and it's going that way. I talked to an appraiser, which was really helpful information because we took a single family, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 800 square feet, built out the basement, right? 2 units. And now we're going to build the dadu in the backyard. So I was picking his brain. This property is a little closer to the freeway. I asked him how much he hit us on value as far as, off the price. And he said, well, if it's a busy street, I'd take off 25 grand. But since it was closer to the freeway, I took off 50. But since you have a big lot, you're going to build bigger dadus down the road. So you'll make up your money there. But he gave me such amazing information. And it was just a 30-minute, and most appraisers, it's hard to get a lot of things out of them. But I was trying to figure out like about how these daddies work. And the value for them. And he was just spilling the beans, telling me everything that I needed to know. And I am new to it. Just like now that we condoized the three, now we got 3 property tax bills. They just showed up. So here's one more
Coming
thing.
in threes, more bills.
I'm all, "Ah."
Yeah.
I took photos of him. I sent it to, we have a dedicated assistant for Seattle now,
Oh, I love
and she's
that.
amazing. And so I look at him like, and I go, I'm taking photos. I'm like, it's off my plate now. She's taking care of it.
She's got a handle.
I'm moving on. I'm gonna pick out light fixtures.
Yeah, on to the next. She'll figure it out.
I totally. One last thing. What is one of your biggest goals this year that you really want to achieve?
Ooh.
What's one that's like you think about a lot, you haven't done it yet, but you want to?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I am in this phase of my life where I am kind of thinking about my own, not that I've never thought about my future because I think about it a lot, but kind of thinking about where I want to step into next because I'm like, all right, I got the real estate thing down. Me and my mom have a lot of, and the whole team at Ann Curry Homes have a lot of really cool stuff coming. And so that part of my life feels like it's moving and going forward, and it feels not necessarily settled, but it feels like it's going at a good pace. And so I've thought a lot about like, all right, what are other areas that I want to continue to grow and expand? And so I'm thinking of my goal of eventually I'm going to write books and speak on stages and things like that, and really want to help other people in their own journey of self-development and growth and kind of use my experiences for that. And so I recently started a newsletter called Reset, and it comes out every Monday. And I am working right now on building it more into like a website and having more interviews and tips and tricks, and growing it just not just for a newsletter, but more of like a platform that people can go to. And so I've put a lot of my extra time and energy towards that because I'm like, all right, I feel like I got the real estate thing down. The team is doing amazing and we're doing a lot of amazing projects for that side. But I'm kind of thinking about my own personal, like Lauren Curry brand, which I hate even like saying that out loud, but the things that I want to do more personally of helping people. So that's what I'm working on right now, which is really cool and exciting. And I think everything I've learned in real estate will have a huge impact in that too.
I can see that. I can see this
Oh, I
for
love
sure.
that. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah, I
you.
can see
I'm
this.
excited. I'm
Yeah, it's
excited.
good.
So
I appreciate you sharing that. That's good. I'm looking forward to seeing this.
thank
Good.
you.
It's around you, so I'm gonna know. I'm gonna see it happening. So I'm gonna be like,
You might be featured on there. So get
yeah,
ready for an email asking for an interview. I'll be returning the favor.
yeah, no problem. Anytime. Well, it's so good to get you on. I'm so glad. I'm glad that I don't even know what I think I was just randomly driving and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get Lauren on the podcast. I'm glad that passed it on over to Jackie, and then Jackie reached out, and then that was on your goal list, and then we were able to get you on, and yeah, it was just great. I
I love
really
that.
enjoy having a
Yeah,
conversation with you
no,
today.
I'm grateful for you and your friendship and, the ways that we've gotten to work together. And I know I told you this when we were talking about the last event that we did together in January, but it really does feel like you came into my mom and I's life for a reason. And it feels like we've just known you forever and you feel like such a genuine friend, and so I just appreciate you, and there's no coincidences for any of this, right? No coincidences for us
Yeah, yeah.
getting connected
Yes.
and no coincidence for this interview happening, and so I'm just super grateful for you and having me on the podcast, so I appreciate you.
Yeah, and I think I could say the same. So we're leading back to our conversation midway through about the past, right?
Yep,
That is really the truth, you
yep.
know?
That's
Yeah,
how it
and
works. All the
yeah,
listeners are hearing it come to life.
it's true.
Which I
It's
love,
really
so
true.
yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, give your mom a big hug, and where can the audience find you?
Yeah, you can follow me at LG Curry on Instagram, That's where I'm at mainly on social media. And my weekly newsletter is called Reset. And I have a link in my bio on my Instagram for you to sign up for that. That comes out every Monday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you'll be seeing a larger platform here very, very soon. So,
Good.
really excited for that.
Good. Well, I appreciate you jumping on today, Lauren. You have a good rest of your day, and we'll be talking soon.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thank you for tuning into our show, where we hope you found inspiration and gained valuable insights. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to stay updated on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with others who might benefit from it. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more candid conversations and breakthrough moments in the future. Until next time, take care and keep exploring new ideas and strategies.